Welcome to Live from Mars. My name is Alex. You may know me as Mars from TikTok, Instagram, this podcast, hopefully. And you may be noticing this is a little bit different of a backdrop. We are not in my 500 square foot studio apartment anymore. This is the big leagues. We are here in the Spotify office talking all things Loud and Clear with Sam Duboff, who is the global head of Spotify for artist marketing. And a huge, huge welcome to Sam. Welcome to Live from Mars.
Thanks. I'm a big fan. Really happy to be here.
Well, we're here today. The Loud and Clear report is coming out. There's so much insight in here. But for anyone who is new to the podcast, new to Spotify, new to Loud and Clear, want to give you a chance to intro yourself, let everyone know what your background is, and we can get into the specifics from there.
Love it. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I'm Sam. I lead our Spotify for Artists marketing and policy team. Been at Spotify for 6 years, just over 6 years now.
Very nice.
I've been working in the kind of creator monetization space for a while. So before Spotify, I was trying to help video creators get paid at Twitter. Those were the days of Twitter native video and Vine. Periscope, also RIP.
Oh my God, Periscope. I forgot about Periscope.
Yeah, that was I was there like right around the rise and fall a little bit. So I was focused there on how we get video creators paid. I left and ran marketing for Medium, the blogging and publishing platform, and launched the Medium partner program there, which was our attempt to get writers and publishers paid on Medium, and then came to Spotify. Yeah, I've been here for 6 years. I spend most of my time working on Spotify for Artists, which I think most of your listeners are music fans versus necessarily artists themselves. Spotify for Artists is the kind of flip side of the coin. If you're a listener, you're using Spotify every day. If you're an artist, a manager, a label, you're using Spotify for Artists every day. You can get analytics, tools to promote your music, video and expression features, merch and ticketing features. So it's kind of that other side. Every time you're using Spotify as a listener, there's a bunch of artists using Spotify for Artists, kind of delivering everything that you're seeing on the platform.
It's the back end that makes what we use as listeners possible.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
So my team works on building Spotify for Artists and kind of helping to bring the products to artists, and then broader just kind of artist kind of policy and industry issues. I try to help artists understand the music industry better, understand how to use Spotify better. Really fun and important stuff.
Yeah. Well, moving from Twitter to Spotify, I guess, was there some background that you had in music or the passion you had for the industry that led you to come here rather than another company?
Definitely passion for music was the thing. What's the opposite of being blessed? I was disgraced with a really horrible singing voice and had no musical talent. As a kid, I tried all the different instruments.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I would, your show would get canceled immediately if I tried to sing right now at that level.
Yeah.
And
what'd you play?
I tried piano, I tried guitar, drums seemed easier.
Drums seemed fun.
I didn't have the right rhythm for it.
So you feel better? I played the cello, and it was like substantially taller than me.
Yeah. So it's like both hard to do and humbling.
Yeah, so that lasted about a year in
Yeah.
elementary school. And then I decided, you know what, I'm better to talk about it, not sing it.
Yeah, I had a similar revelation. Maybe I'm more behind the scenes. So yeah, maybe because I have so little talent for the creative itself, I'm so inspired by music artists, formerly writers and video creators. And I've always focused more on the business side of, in this switch to tech, how do we set up platforms and systems so that creators can do what they're best at and get paid for it and build careers around it. I've always just been obsessed with music, and my first job out of college actually was at Pepsi in entertainment marketing. So I got
tons of legendary Pepsi campaigns.
Yeah, definitely. Got to work with Snoop Dogg and Big Boy and lots of athletes, and we did a big sponsorship of South by Southwest. So that was like the closest I'd gotten to music. And then at Twitter, we did a big campaign with Martin Garrix because he was one of the kind of first artists really using Twitter video and Vine and Periscope in a big way. And then on Medium, there's actually way more music writing than you'd think. But when I had the opportunity to properly jump into the music industry at Spotify, that was the dream. And get to be here and help support the artists who are doing the really amazing parts.
Amazing. So if you had to describe for someone listening who is not so familiar with the background of the music industry, how this world all worked, how would you describe what you do at work in one sentence?
In one sentence, helping artists build their fan bases and careers on Spotify.
Easy. Love that. So going into the Loud and Clear report, many of you may not be familiar with the Loud and Clear report. I had heard, pieces of it over the years, but I want to give you a chance to give background on what it is.
Yeah, music industry is famously opaque and complicated. I think we've all seen movies of the music industry, like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and, backroom deals and recording versus publishing and, radio airplay and this really kind of complex ecosystem where in every country, royalties and payments work different and you need different deals in different countries. it always has been really complicated. And then there's really a ton of change all at once. First, because of piracy, when the CD era kind of winded down with the internet leading to rampant piracy, and then streaming kind of creating this monetized model for music in the internet age. Tons of change to an industry that already was really confusing, and understandably a lot of questions and need for information from artists who are navigating an entire different ecosystem. So we started Loud&Clear 4 years ago. This is our 5th Loud&Clear report, and the idea is just be as transparent as possible. The music industry is really lacking transparency, and we just want to play our parts by publishing all the data we have. So we have a top 10 takeaways section where we basically look at the year prior, all the royalty data of all the money we paid out to artists, songwriters, and the rights holders. And we say, here's some of the 10 most interesting data trends we see, and we'll talk about a few of those.
Yeah.
But when you scroll down, you also just get from $1,000 to $5,000 a year, $10,000 a year, $100,000 a year, all the way up to $10 million a year. Click any revenue threshold and see exactly how many artists are generating that amount every year since we have data, which is 2017. We always just want to set the standard of every year we'll be transparent about how that's trending. And then we have a bunch of education resources. So you can watch videos on how the money flows in streaming, how do payments work, recording versus publishing, what's stream share, what's a distributor versus a label versus a publisher, all those complicated things. And there's an FAQ section too, where we have the 30 or 40 kind of most frequently asked questions from artists. There's probably like 100 more we could. We try to give some answers to that. So we just, I think when we're releasing this, we will have just published our report looking back on 2024. We're always really proud when we release this data because
it's very impactful stuff.
Yeah,
it truly is.
And, years later, we're still the only streaming service that provides data like this. And one thing we'd love to see is across the industry, see even more data like this, more information, what's total payout from all retailers and services, how many artists are making different amounts on every service. And that's what we're hoping Loud&Clear can start to lead the way on.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible, especially in this day and age. I always feel like there's this weird contradiction, for lack of a better word, about how much data we have at our fingertips with everything we do. I mean, I'm wearing like a fitness tracker on my wrist.
Right.
And everything is digitized, and you have ChatGPT and AI and all of this where data is just everywhere. But then a lot of companies or a lot of platforms not gatekeep it, but like kind of gatekeep it.
Right.
It's not publicized. And to your point about how this industry has completely evolved, especially over the last 10 years, right? With the boom of streaming, it's really been an eye-opening experience for me as a viewer to see, when you're on Spotify, you can see how many streams a song has, but there's all these misconceptions about how much an artist actually gets paid per stream. And you hear artists talk about how it's not lucrative enough and the way that a single stream gets divided up. There's all these misconceptions that I want to go through. But I guess the biggest thing that I took from the report is that in a year like 2024, there's all of this surround sound about, streams this and how many Spotify records this album broke. But at the end of the day, this is their job. Like the artists, the songwriters, the producers, the mixers, the engineers, there's all of these people behind the scenes that are making what you hear in your ears for the 2 minutes you hear it that need to get paid to have a lifestyle, right?
Absolutely.
So the biggest thing that I took from this report, $10 billion paid out in 2024.
That's right.
Insane. More than any other retailer in history. So what do you think this means and the shift you've seen from year to year? How do you see this impacting the future?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, more money paid out means more opportunity for artists. Mm-hmm. And that's really the key. And I think part of how we think about it's in the broader kind of history of, the last 20 years of the music industry. So you have 2001 was the peak of global revenue in the CD era. In 2001, there's like $22 billion in global recorded revenue that year.
And think about 2001. Some of you may not even have been alive in 2001, but like 2001, I'm thinking peak Britney Spears, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys were, what was it? NSYNC's No Strings Attached, 2000, had the highest sales week for better part of a decade plus.
Exactly that. It's superstar economy. It's the the top 50 acts got 25% of all CD sales. You kind of had to have a relationship with a record label, mostly in the US and Western Europe, to be able to even have the money to produce a CD that would make it to a record store and have the opportunity to make a sale. But there was big money there for the people who were succeeding. It was just a really limited set. So you're at 22 billion. Piracy begins. The internet starts to break down the album. People are getting music illegally instead of buying CDs in stores. Yeah. And you start to see a free fall. And it went down to, the low point was 2014. So 13 years later of year-over-year decline. down to 13 billion. So from like 22 billion, the entire music
a lot of
industry
bees.
is basically kind of, yeah, cut in half. At that time, Spotify was a few years in. We were paying out $1 billion a year then, which wasn't much. The top artist at that time on Spotify was generating like a little over 5 million. And so this year, yeah, it's exactly 10 years later from the low point of the industry. Industry's been rebuilding every year since. Streaming, of course, leading the way. And for Spotify, we've gone from $1 billion a year paid out to the music industry to 10 billion. So 10x in 10 years.
Yeah.
And we're hopefully an important part of that story, but it's really a larger kind of streaming economy story. The industry is on track to 30 billion in annual revenue now. And that's just recorded revenue. I know you love vinyl and merch.
Yeah.
Like that's recorded revenues kind of approaching 30 billion as an industry. There's still brand sponsorships, vinyl, merch sales, ticket sales. The live industry is huge. So when we think about these big numbers, the $10 billion payout, the real goal of that, it's opportunity for more artists. And so that's not just going to superstars anymore.
No.
We're talking about 250,000 artists making over $1,000, over 100,000 generating more than 5K, 70,000 at the 10K level, all the way up to, I mentioned the top artist in 2014 on Spotify. That was at, a little over 5 billion. There's over 200 artists generating more than 5 billion a year on Spotify now. And there's 70 making over 10 million. So when you're thinking about, the sorts of acts that you talk about on this show, like the, big global superstars, they're all generating more than 10 million a year just on Spotify.
It's one platform.
Yeah.
There's so many other streamers too, but who knows what the payouts are there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, the 10 billion kind of like gets to be such a large number where it's hard to put that in context. A lot of our takeaways are about global and international opportunity, indie artist opportunity, and that's what really excites us.
The fact that you can get paid as a smaller artist is massive, and especially the point that like being a little bit older and remembering going to this, FYE or going to Sam Goody and buying records and CDs and collecting them, you only can buy what's physically in the store.
That's right.
And there is a huge restriction there if you're an independent artist, if you're a smaller artist on a label and your CDs aren't getting shipped out to these stores, where are you going?
Yeah.
Right? Now,
at the peak of the CD era, like the biggest Tower Records, which was one of the big record stores for your younger listeners.
Been looking for a really cool vintage Tower Records jacket.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
The biggest one had 50,000 CDs in their inventory, and so that's probably like 10,000 artists maybe, because they could carry a lot of different CDs from big artists. So it's like 10, 20,000 artists, even with the chance to make one sale at a record store. Now you're seeing 250,000 artists alone generating more than $1,000 on Spotify, let alone when you're getting to the really big amounts of money. So it's a whole different kind of level of opportunity for artists, and especially for indie artists. 50% of the 10 billion that was paid out by Spotify went to indies. So that's DIY artists using services like DistroKid or CD Baby or TuneCore through to indie label artists who more non-traditional deals. So this really isn't a story of the 2001 examples you gave of there's great opportunity at the top for those superstars, but it's really about an entire ecosystem of indie artists, emerging artists from all different countries who are participating more and more in that revenue too.
Yeah, I remember in the report it mentioned 80% of top earning artists weren't in Spotify's global daily top 50 chart.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable, because the average listener may only be going to that chart and going through today's top hit. And the fact that 80% weren't even on that just speaks to the tail.
Yeah, exactly. And that's of artists making over $1 million a year. Sometimes I'll ask friends or family, you'd be like, who do you think would be the type of artist who's, netting $1 million a year from just Spotify?
Right.
And you kind of just think of the biggest superstars, the people up for album of the year,
right.
Number one on the charts. And, at that level, we're talking 10 million a year on Spotify now. For 1 million, 80% of them don't even have a song that had reached the top 50 because they just have a big enough fan base across their catalog where it's not about having a viral hit. It's not about having one smash song and people aren't listening to the rest. It's these sustainable careers where you have fans listening to so much of your music that it's not about getting that chart success. It's about this fan base that you've built over time. 80% of them are actively touring. This isn't like legacy acts who aren't still pursuing their career, and they sing in 17 different languages.
Yeah.
So this isn't just like American and European artists who have access to the, financial systems that would let them produce and manufacture and record CDs. It's artists all over the world.
So there's a ton of misconceptions about streaming, whether they're good for artists, whether it's bad for artists, if it's profitable, if it's not. What would you say is the biggest misconception about streaming?
I think the biggest misperception we hear a lot is about the idea of fixed per stream rate.
Yeah.
If you ask people, how do you think artists get paid on streaming? Think, oh, there must just be, every time I hit play, they must just get some amount, which...
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and that'd be logical. It's kind of how CDs work, right? Like unit sales, you'd buy a CD and everyone would get a portion of that single moment of purchase.
Right.
No major streaming service pays that way. And if you think about it as a listener, you aren't paying per stream. And that's the beauty of streaming. It's not like iTunes where you're thinking of, should I pay 99 cents for this song?
I think back to that a lot. I remember getting in trouble from my parents when they would see the credit card bill and it would be just iTunes charge $1.29, $1.29, $1.29, or album here, album there. And then I would like go to YouTube and use a YouTube to MP3 type thing to not have to pay for it.
Right.
And I remember being so protective over my laptop because it had every song I had ever put in.
Right.
And that was the biggest thing for streaming for me as a listener who loves such a wide array of music. You have the opportunity to listen to 10 seconds of a song and decide you don't like it and then move on, or listen to 100 songs in a day and not have to, pay per one.
Right.
But the payouts are a whole other world. So
right.
I'm curious how that all works too.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd have to know you like a song enough to want to pay for it.
Right.
So you miss out on all these songs you would love because you weren't ready to pay for it yet, or you buy songs and then you didn't really need to listen to them anymore. So the way all streaming services pay out is based on stream share. So every month, all the money comes in from subscribers, from advertising on our free tier, and then we look at all the streams in that month. Every other streaming services looks at all their streams in that month. And then you pay out based on what percentage of streams each song, each artist had. So a simple way of thinking about it is, let's say 1 month you had 1% of all streams on Spotify. That'd be like an insanely popular artist. You'd get 1% of the royalty pool that month. That comes in from subscription fees, that comes in from ads. So the more fans listen, the more engaged they are. You want listeners on streaming who are just going deep in your catalog, playlisting, sharing. And that's what you see on Spotify. It's the most streams per listener, right? Like the biggest music fans who listen to the most music tend to go to Spotify. And so, that's one of the reasons we've been able to grow payouts this much. If you weren't streaming much music on a streaming service, you'd probably stop paying for it.
I always thought it was like this 0.004 or something of a dollar is like what one stream equals. And then that 0.004 of a dollar is then distributed and divided up by artist, label, management, whoever.
Yeah.
And it's not the reality. Well, you touched upon it a few minutes ago, but about the globalization of music and how, streaming has really allowed for us here in America to easily listen to as many artists as we want who could be in any country in the world. And there was an interesting finding in the report that over half of all artists generating at least $1,000 have collaborated with at least one other artist from a different country.
Yeah.
So how do you see the globalization of music impacting, I guess, traditional genre norms and listening habits?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. And a lot of it is kind of what we were talking about earlier of the old CD era in music. It cost a lot of money to record and produce.
Right.
You then had to get the funding from a label or from yourself to be able to pay to print a certain number of CDs that then you'd have to find a way to sell or get to record stores and lose a cut to the record store. And because of that, most of the commercial music that succeeded was just from major markets, the US, Canada, the UK, where there were these really established industries and those systems in place. And we were missing out on all these amazing genres, and artists around the world were missing out on the opportunity, with, how easy it is to make music now online, the bedroom producer, bedroom pop as its own genre.
Think of Billie Eilish. Always what I think of.
They're way harder for them to produce the pieces they have.
They made her entire first album and early singles in their childhood bedroom on a computer and were able to upload it to SoundCloud and other platforms. Right. And here it is.
It's crazy. Whole different thing. Unimaginable not that long earlier than them. And there's tons of artists, Billie Eilish's in different countries that we were missing out on. And, decades early, I'm sure there's so many Billie Eilish's.
Right. Just the name that we know, but it's one of hundreds of thousands, probably.
Yeah, exactly. And so now you can make music on your computer for way less and distribute it for, close to free.
Right.
And reach these global audiences. And so what you're seeing is all these genres, Amapiano and K-pop and J-pop and Afro beats and Afropop. They now are finding this global audience, and these artists from all over the world are able to collaborate with each other, succeed in different ways, build careers in music that would have been really, really hard before.
Right.
And so, I love that stat you shared where the majority of artists are collaborating with an artist in another country and often even another language. And they kind of each can expose each other to their audiences, their audiences get exposed to new music. Another kind of wild stat is that the majority of artists making at least $1,000 a year on Spotify make most of their money from outside their home market. So, you're a amazing artist in the Philippines, in a previous era of music, maybe you could sell CDs around the Philippines.
Right. You have to physically get them to other countries.
Right.
The barriers to enter are so much lower now.
Yeah, now you release music, everyone in the world can listen to it, and the majority of your money is going to come from the 180 other markets that Spotify's in, which is so cool. And I think it's evolving people's taste in music, which I love seeing.
Totally.
And so many more artists are getting more opportunities. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, and you're also noticing the top 1% of artists are, tapping into different genres and different sounds and different languages. I'm thinking of the Bruno Mars and Rosé song, and also the boom in Latin pop. And you're seeing like the top 1% of artists, I keep calling them, collaborate in different languages, different genres. But what you're not seeing below the surface is that these trends are happening with these smaller artists. These smaller artists are collaborating, like you just talked about, with artists from other countries. The big label head may be seeing this and saying, hey, top 1% artists, like, get on this. This is a moving trend. And it speaks to just how strong the other 99% of artists are and collaborating and being creative and making it their own, right?
Yeah, and even like you don't have to go into a professional level studio to record anymore. So they can just collaborate digitally.
Yeah.
So much easier.
And how do you also analyze like gender in music right now? Because from the top, maybe 1% of my world, it's pop. Like pop girls are always what you hear and talk about, right? Looking more macro, what is the gender breakdown and how this impacts payouts too?
Yeah, I think with fewer gatekeepers in music now.
Gatekeeping.
Yeah, we don't like it.
No.
Listeners get exposed to different music and they get to choose what they're listening to. The majority of streams on Spotify are what we call active streams, not lean back from playlists. That's a great way to discover music. Active streams are you're choosing who you're listening to. You're going to the artist profile, their album page, their single page, your own playlist where you save their music and you're going back to it. And so because of that, all different types of music gets to succeed. So yeah, one of the stats we shared is about the success of female artists.
Female artists earning over $1 million has quadrupled since 2017.
Yeah, wild.
Insane.
And yeah, that's all from fans getting to choose.
Oh yeah, a lot of Live from Mars listeners, like myself, are fans of like massive pop superstars. Yeah. We are super fans. We come here to listen and talk all things in so much excruciatingly painful detail about a song, an album, an era.
I've listened to your show, so I know. I know the level of depth.
It's deep. It gets deep. So I guess what role would you say superfans play in everything we've already talked about, right? Because you have your casual listener who may just be listening to their Discover Weekly. They may be listening to their on repeat and just keeping that in cycle. But we talked a little bit about going deeper, those active streamers. How do superfans, I guess, play into all that?
Superfans are what are powering the music economy right now, and that's why I see artists focusing on like superfan strategies so much, which is so, as a superfan of many artists, I like seeing it on Spotify. And in Spotify for Artists, one of the data points we give all artists is how many super listeners do you have. So within your active listeners, how many are like really listening to you a lot?
Oh, they see us, guys. They see us.
They do, and they can track every day. They'll see how they're super, what are their super listeners resonating with, which songs are they liking, all that stuff. And super listeners are on average only 2% of an artist's audience. It's like when you see that monthly listener count at the top of a profile, only 2% are the super listeners, but they're 18% of streams and over 50% of merch purchases. It's like, when you see like vinyl and merch on Spotify, we kind of can track who's clicking through.
Wow, so, I did not realize that.
Yeah, so you kind of can picture as an artist, you have this network of fandom where you have lots of fans finding you, in programming, on playlists, checking you out, some percentage there, then save your music, come back to it, start listening to it actively, all the way down to your super listeners who are big engine of word of mouth. They're probably starting a Stan account. They're buying the vinyl. They're getting all the different variants. They're telling everyone they have to listen, and they're powering a huge part of the streaming royalties and just like the overall business for the artist.
I guess a question that just came to mind. We talked a little bit about before we started recording how vinyl plays into all this. How I started off creating content about vinyl that was like all I did was vinyl. And now I guess the biggest difference from like what I've perceived as a vinyl purchaser and just like music fan, I started collecting a very tail end of 2020, like December 2020, and I literally bought
a COVID era.
Yeah, exactly. And I bought my first record purely because I was living at home. I was excited about moving back into the city, having my own apartment for the first time, and I knew I wanted to decorate with album art, and I figured, okay, well, the best way to do that is by having a 12 by 12 print, like a high quality print of my favorite albums. And yeah, it was cool. It came with the disc, but I didn't have a record player. So I'm like, okay, whatever. It's just art. And then I got a record player. My dad surprised me with one random day. And then I started playing them. And now what you're seeing is endless amounts of variants. And every different retailer or streamer has an exclusive color or an exclusive alt cover or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, yes, it's contributing to the amount of money an artist will take home. But as a streamer, people aren't streaming when they're spinning a record. So how does like this relationship work? Because on one hand, it's still the same super fan. They're just consuming the music from an artist in a different format. But, you know, streaming is the norm, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it all is supporting the artist, and it's that kind of overall artist business. And Spotify is a big part of it. And we love all different ways for artists to make money, whether it's on Spotify or elsewhere. And I think what you see for a lot of people, we sell a lot of vinyl through Spotify. We don't sell it ourselves. You know, the artist can link to it and it'll show up when you're listening to the album. You know, that's how you discover the artist, right? That's where you fall in love with the artist, you fall in love with their music, you can kind of go back to the music. And hopefully that leads the fans to then go and see them live in concert and to buy the t-shirt and to buy every vinyl variant.
Right? I remember reading a stat somewhere, I don't remember the number, but the majority of like Gen Z millennial who are buying vinyl don't even have a record player. So they're not maybe listening to it on vinyl, but they're using it as a way of supporting artists. And it all just goes back to how you can support your favorite artist. Artist deserves to be paid for their work.
Right. And that's like the artist-fan connection. That's the core of it. And I love that stat because it shows part of it's obviously always connected to the music. The music's where everything begins. Everything else is around the music. But it's about like the level of passion fans develop around artists and wanting to support them, wanting to make sure they can keep making music, wanting to show, you know, when someone walks into your apartment, like, I like this artist. Like this album's part of my identity. And streaming's one big part of it. Vinyl's a big part of it. Like nightlife's a big part of it. There's so many different places that music just like permeates all of culture. And yeah, I'm a big vinyl fan too. So I think it complements streaming really well.
Your favorite record you have?
The one I have like on the record stand, the one that I always have like facing out so you can see it, it's Melodrama by it's
classic
on vinyl, and the cover is iconic.
Legendary. Great choice. Great choice. I guess looking more macro, looking towards the future, knowing that the music industry has consistently evolved, kind of every 10 years there's this big shift from vinyl to 8-tracks to CDs and cassettes to streaming and purchasing on iTunes and stuff. It's been, 10 years since 2014 that record low. How do you see the music industry and streaming evolving? What is streaming 2.0 in your mind? How do you see this trend continuing and shaping?
Yeah, I think it's all about artist-fan connection and all these new ways for an artist to create an entire world around their music. Because the industry has recovered so much in the last 10 years, there's all this money that artists are making that they can reinvest in these like bigger projects and more ways for them to build their business. And you think of music videos and merch and things artists are doing that isn't even really merch. It's just kind of like consumer products that they're making because they have good taste, concerts, all the different ways that they're monetizing their world, vinyl, all the variants that they're doing, online listening parties, physical listening parties, brand deals where because there's so many amazing artists powering culture, brands want to come in and support them. And so, I think this like next era of music's all about that artist fan connection. And we're trying to do a lot of that. We're trying to build, bring in countdown pages where you can get hyped up as a super fan for an album coming out. Or, music videos we now have in over 100 countries. And we're working on the US too, where, you love a song, check out the video, watch short clips of it, buy their merch right there on Spotify too. You can be that portal that takes you to everywhere the artist wants you to go. And I think that's really exciting. As a fan, that's kind of what I want to see too. So I'm hoping this prediction comes true more from that perspective.
All right. Well, we talked all things loud and clear. Now I want to give my listeners a chance to know your music taste a little bit better. So if you had to recommend one album for my listeners to listen to right now, what would it be?
Well, we're recording this on Lady Gaga Mayhem
Day.
Release day. I've done like a listen and a half so far. It's hard to say anything else right now. That's what's top of mind for me.
That's a good one.
I think this is a Lady Gaga return to form.
So good.
Perfect timing heading into spring and summer. So it's got to be that today of all days.
The album surprised me because I felt like so much of it originally was positioned as dark and grimy and chaotic.
Yeah.
And following like Disease, Abracadabra, where you're seeing that return to Fame monster kind of artistry and sound and disruption, for lack of a better word. And then once you clear like Perfect Celebrity on the track list, it ventures into this.
And I love Perfect Celebrity.
Me too. So good. I was listening to it when I got stuck on the subway coming here over and over. And I'm like, this is just, I said in my initial reaction to it, there are so many songs about commentary on fame and what it's like to be a celebrity and in the public eye. And it can be very cringe sometimes. It can be like too on the nose. I was so impressed that it didn't go down that route. It went down a much like more summery, carefree, light mood than I was expecting and what the aesthetic of the album is portraying.
Yeah.
So like, what were you surprised also listening to it?
I was, yeah. Also with like Die With a Smile kind of kicking off the era. I didn't know if that was more the direction that it was going in. Yeah, now
big question mark.
Yeah, maybe it was. I saw she said this week in one of her interviews it was the last song she recorded.
No way.
And so
there's
kind of
no way.
Yeah. It sonically is quite different.
Very different.
Yeah.
And I was talking about this in a video and people like came for me. They're like, no, Die With a Smile is meant to be on this album and it fits perfectly as a closer and it's going to be great before it even came out, before today.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, flashback to August. They've originally released it as this like one-off collaboration. They had this idea when they were in neighboring studios and came together to create this timeless ballad love song. And then it did so well. So well.
Yeah. Crazily well.
Yeah, she actually commented on my reaction to this video, and
oh, no
I lost my shit.
What'd she say?
A bunch of black heart emojis and the word love.
Perfect.
And I'm like, that's all I need.
Right.
I can die happy now with a smile. And what I remember afterwards when, Joker 2 dropped and that didn't get the best reviews and the Harlequin album, and I personally enjoyed it, but it didn't make really a splash. And then Disease came, and it's a great song. I loved Disease, but it didn't make anywhere near the impact Die With a Smile did. So I'm like, in this streaming economy, you put on Die With a Smile as the end of the album and it boosts streams, right? I personally don't think it was intended to be on the album.
Yeah. I'll leave this level of music criticism to you, but it does. I'd say on my listen so far, it sounds so different than anything else on the album, and I really like it. But it feels a little bit like a separate project.
A little bit.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like the Abracadabra Grammy commercial was one of like the great promotion strategies of
so good,
kind of like re-kickstarting this era. And then the album's just like really, really good.
Oh yeah. Well, I want to go back to Melodrama.
Great.
Okay. So a game that I like to play with guests and a whole series I used to do on TikTok was called Best Worst Fave, where we pick an album and you tell me what you think the best song, the worst song, and your personal favorite song is.
Okay.
So Sam, best worst fave, Lorde's Melodrama.
All right. Fave, the Supercut.
Mine too.
That's like, I have a Spotify playlist that's like all-time classics.
Yeah.
I have like favorites of each year, and then the ones that make it to like, that one's all-time classics for me. And just like a great metaphor for a way to think about a relationship that no one had really done before.
Yeah.
And we all kind of think that way a little bit from all the movies we watch as kids. Anyway, that's favorite for sure. Best, I don't know, maybe like Greenlight. I think it was like the perfect first single.
Nailed it.
I saw her perform that at Coachella.
Oh,
and
boy.
It was amazing.
That must have been unreal.
The perfect space for that song. I love Writer in the Dark too. That's like more like, for like more of the craft side.
Right.
Like maybe that's the like best in that way. What do I skip? Homemade Dynamite.
Really?
I skip sometimes.
Okay, I have
I struggle. I think it's a perfect album, so I've tried saying a skip. But maybe that.
Have you heard the remix?
No.
Okay, there's a remix that came out when the album dropped with Khalid, SZA, maybe Post Malone. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly.
Okay. That sounds good.
It's
okay. That'll have a whole new.
It's good.
So, all right, I'll check that out.
You nailed it.
Okay, good.
Nailed it.
What would you have said?
Your exact choices.
Great.
Your exact choices.
All right.
Greenlight is the best. I think that the way it welcomes you into the world of the album is perfect. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And just like the visual imagery that I get from it, like having your head out the window of a car and just driving, it's so euphoric. Worst, maybe Homemade Dynamite is a weaker one, I would say, but it's such a strong album that saying that is like doing it a disservice.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe Hard Feelings Loveless.
Okay.
Maybe I just returned to that one a little bit less.
Okay.
Right. Sober 2, I see people say is a weaker moment, but I really love that one.
Yeah.
So I can understand why people may choose it, but it's not one that I may say. And then favorite is Supercut.
Yeah.
It is just 10 out of 10. Like, I have a playlist like you where it's, I call it just art. I'm like, these songs are just pure.
Yeah. No other way to say it.
Like, no notes, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Perfectly encapsulate why I love music so much.
Yeah.
Supercut is a prime example.
Ugh, I love that.
So good.
What are you expecting for Lorde's next album? What do you predict?
No clue. Solar Power didn't do it for me. It didn't.
It didn't do it for a lot of people. I ended up liking it, but it was different. She tried it. Yeah.
Tried it, and I think it really works when you're in the exact scenario that she wrote it in and wants you to live it in. You're sitting on a beach without a care in the world, and I've put it on in that exact position, and I feel it. Yeah. I get it. But it's not the type of music like a Melodrama or Pure Heroine. It's not like that where I can just go through and put it on today and listen to rips and have like this euphoric moment.
Yeah.
So I struggled with it. I think it was a cool opportunity for her to show off her as an artist, but it leaves me having no clue where she's going to go next.
Right.
Do you have like thoughts or what you envision dream Lorde 4 would be?
I mean, there's part of me that wants her to like return to the Melodrama sound, but I wouldn't want that for her because I think she pushes herself in a way that's really amazing. And I'm hoping like the Girl So Confusing remix. That was,
my God.
The best song last year.
Yep.
Helped her see the way we're craving her like lyricism and personal storytelling. To see maybe that's going to be like a bit of a hint of where she's headed next, where maybe it'll be like a bit more kind of commercial pop, but with kind of her own spin on it.
That was the moment last year.
Yeah. The best moment of the year in music.
I remember when I first heard it, I was just completely taken back.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe the fact that Charli, who had like the biggest year in 2024, was the one who was able to get Lorde to come out of her quasi-retirement to be like, hey, girl, I know we may have this unspoken beef, but want to come do a song with me about our beef?
Right.
And the fact that like, Lorde adjusted her style to be what Charli was doing on Girl So Confusing, it really allowed me to see Lorde as an artist in a different way because she was able to take away all of the constructs that made Lorde and adapt like a chameleon to Charli's style, but it worked so well. And like the brutal honesty of her songwriting is something that I really hope continues into the next era for sure.
I love that. Yeah, so well. And yeah, the first time everyone heard it, it was like you couldn't believe the song existed. You're like, what?
Yeah.
There's like a few songs that can give you that level of like, there's songs where you can't believe how good they are.
Right.
A few where you like can't believe it exists and they did it.
Right.
And that was a great moment.
So good. All right, last question for you. What excites you the most about the future of streaming music, Spotify?
This one's a bit of a kind of like Spotify prediction, also personal as a fan.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see like a big resurgence of the music video. We've been focused a lot on bringing music videos onto Spotify. More to come soon. And I feel like, everyone's kind of craving these kind of like monoculture moments again.
Yep.
Even if you're in a niche genre, even if you kind of have a niche fan base that's passionate. I feel like music videos have had kind of like an ebb and flow and cultural impact. And I think even with Abracadabra, we're just talking about, but not just for big artists, for artists kind of across the ecosystem, it's so much more affordable to make really amazing music videos than it's ever been before.
Right.
And, I'm hoping as a fan and I'm thinking kind of looking where the industry is headed that, the music video and short form is amazing. Like we're all addicted to, TikTok and all the short form platforms.
Yeah.
But I think we're craving a little bit of the like depth of long form. It's like, we were talking earlier about doing a full podcast versus just TikTok clips.
Right.
Like same thing for an artist. Like it's awesome to be able to, in short snippets, connect with your fans. But I think every artist and every fan wants that more kind of like in-depth piece of work.
Totally.
As a video. So I'm excited to see a lot of that.
It's an opportunity to showcase your artistry so much deeper. And I think a lot of it I actually credit to an artist like Taylor, who kind of ushered in the mainstream norm of like visual storytelling and visual imagery in her music. Pairing that with an actual visual helps tell the story so much better than just listening may do for some people. And also, music videos are a way to bring back monoculture, to your point. I think what's so interesting is that in a year like 2025 and seeing how diversified music has become, people still crave that ability to go into work that Monday morning and say, hey, did you see this? Did you watch this episode of this show? Did you see this music video? Did you hear this song? People look for ways to connect with others. And that in a video is an opportunity to bring back that same feeling.
Yeah, exactly. And right. And then to watch it together after you like everyone, then it's like late night on a Saturday night and
Yeah.
everyone's watching music videos on TV.
Oh, those are my favorite.
Yeah, right. Like ever like that music video comes to represent what that song is in that moment of life for people
Yeah.
and kind of brings people together in a different way than even the song does.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think we're going to see music videos have never gone away, but I think we're going to see kind of an increased resurgence. Even.
Yeah. Well, this has been such an incredible conversation.
So fun.
I'm so glad that we were able to make this work and that you were able to come on. So thank you so much.
Of course.
Where can people read more about Loud and Clear? Reach out.
Check out spotify.com/loud&clear. And I'm on Threads and Blue Sky and X/Twitter as either Duboff, my last name, or S. Duboff,
Awesome.
first initial last name. And always happy, especially to hear from artists.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. If you are not already subscribed to the podcast or following it on your favorite platform, make sure you do. That is how we get amazing guests like Sam to come on and do this exact thing. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks so much.
Bye.